Hey everybody, welcome to yet another World of Tanks replay, this one in the IS-3 on Lakeville South Spawn. So being on Lakeville in a heavy tank, there's only really one thing for me to do here, and that's to head straight for the town. And when I do so, I've got to stay to the right side to try and put as much distance between myself and the possible enemy scouts in the centre as possible, and also to try and keep out of the render range of enemy tanks firing from the B line. Now, Matchmaker hasn't really given me a particularly reliable team here, but then again the enemy team isn't much better, and so really this one could go either way, and it's going to come down to a very close game, I would think. The bulk of our team is heading east. That's not a problem, in fact it's perfectly fine. The less tanks you have in Valley on this map, the better. If the enemy do push Valley, you can always come back to the position I'm in now to defend your cap. And usually it takes them so long to do it, you've got plenty of time to react. Whereas if you lose the town, you're screwed. Unfortunately, the majority of our heavies seem to just stop, mesmerized by the momentarily spotted Rheinmetall, and they begin firing across the lake at it instead of actually pushing into town, which they need to hurry up and do if they don't want the enemy to have a significant advantage. This is one of the reasons I always find myself alone in front of the team with no support, because I don't generally stop to take shots at tanks that were spotted for a second and then disappeared. There's just not much point. ELC passes. I was hoping to get a sneaky shot into the side of him there, but unfortunately his tank is so low to the ground that the hill was blocking him. Since he spots me, I back off and weave a little, just to try and throw off any potential arty shots incoming, but it turns out the arty's not interested, and so I push up into position behind the cathedral. Now this is a little risky. Arty can sometimes hit you if you're working the position behind here, and also you can be hit from middle, but it does give you a very good position from which to fight these guys. It's also very much in my favour here that I've got the IS-6 with me. He is the next best player on our team, and like the IS-3, he's in a tank that's got quite a decent amount of armour, and is really good at just aggressively pushing people. Unfortunately, the two of us being in the one position is going to make it a little cramped, a little claustrophobic, but it's alright. Fortunately, I bounced my shot off the Löwe there. He was turning as I fired. Should have known that was going to happen, but I took the shot anyway. And here I just want to get shots in where I can and try and keep the IS-6 alive without risking too many of my own hit points. However, he's not an idiot and he backs up as soon as he starts taking damage, but now one of the Panthers is behind me, and as you can possibly tell, you can certainly see it, he's not using the needle gun, he's actually using the 88mm. And on the Panther 1, the 88 you get is the Tigers 88, the KWK-36. Don't use that gun on a Panther. Really, just don't. It's not a good gun at tier 7. I'm beginning to take fire from my left. It's actually coming from the enemy Panther who's set up in the middle. But because it is coming from a Panther, it's first of all low alpha, so if it does pen me, it's not too big of a worry. Second of all, it's not very high pen. The Panther's needle gun does pen quite well, but at this distance and the kind of angles I'm giving him, I don't need to worry about it. Unfortunately, our IS-6 did. He backed out broadside into the Panther's line of fire and was finished off by him. We're doing a pretty decent job of holding these guys off, and you can see the Panther pecking the T-32 to death now. Put in a finisher into the T-32. The Löwe and Comet are both one-shot for me. The Black Prince is two-shot. You know, I think I can get this done pretty comfortably. KV-5 takes the hit from the Löwe. I finish him off, but then I see a tree fall ahead of me. It's actually the Rheinmetall who's moved up. He's still full health, and it looks like he took a shot at me and managed to hit his own team's T-32 wreck. So I pull back, try and bait him into firing at the KV-5, which he does, and then I get a quick snapshot into him before backing off. I don't want to play with him, particularly on that corner. He's using the wall as a screen, it's difficult to see what I'm shooting at, and in any case the valley has fallen. I'm fully aware that the valley has fallen and there's an enemy panther in mid, so I decide to head back to base and start trying to persuade my team to come with me. Now I veer to the left here to try and keep some distance between myself and that panther. I don't want to lose all my hit points to his gun as I cross towards our base. And he is the best player on the enemy team by quite a considerable margin, so you can almost guarantee he's running either optics or binoculars on that tank. So the further across I stay, the better off I will be. Our A44, of course, has not moved all game. He's probably a bot. The T-32 is following behind me, but we still have the KV-5 in town, trying to push through there. ELC's in our base. I managed to snapshot him, which is not a bad choice. The ELC does have quite a dangerous gun, even to an IS-3. The Panther's starting to peck at me, but the T-32 is my big problem. Again, snapshotting works out for me. This isn't normal, but the IS-3 seems to be quite good at it. There's nothing much the E25 can do, and my T-32 support finishes him off. I now turn to try and get a shot on this Rheinmetall, since he is the biggest threat left alive on the enemy team. Much bigger than the Panther, even though the Rheinmetall isn't as good a player, technically speaking. He has a much bigger gun and much better camouflage. I'm a lot more worried about him. My first shot only tracks him for a 0 damage crit. My second actually pens him after he got unspotted there. So he's now hurting for hit points. However, I've got to try and take position to defend our base. The enemy are going to be pushing on us. The T-32 is apparently ammo racked. I'm beginning to run out of ammunition, and the A44 is, of course, a bot. I pull back a little. I don't want to be so close to the edge of the cliff there, where I'm easily spotted. I instead withdraw behind a bush, where I've got a little bit of camouflage to work with. The T-32 was a bit indecisive about his positioning here. He should have been moving to a hull down much earlier, much quicker, but unfortunately he didn't. Either way, it doesn't really matter, because by the time the enemy arrived, he was actually in position. Because for some reason they took a long time to push up. The T-32 actually then moves out of position and begins bumping me. Excuse me, sorry about that. The Panther then starts hitting him, and as you can imagine, I was very frustrated about being bumped there. I was lucky that shot hit the Black Prince. Quite often, if another tank is scraping up against you like that, it will throw your shot completely outside the circle. I pull back. The T-32's tracked. I probably shouldn't have left him to die like that, but in any case, it wouldn't really matter, because I'm now surrounded. Now, you might be asking why I took my attention off the Comet when it's very obviously one-shottable and I'm now dead because I had a lapse of attention. The reason I took my attention off the Comet to engage the Panther is because the Comet is behind a rock, and put quite simply, if I just sat there staring at the Comet, the Panther would have pushed out. If I sat there staring at the Panther, the Comet would have pushed out. It's pretty obvious to see what was going on there. So I had to try and divide my attention as best I could and try and whittle them both down. I did end up killing the Comet, but unfortunately the Panther just rolled out and finished me off before I could even get a chance to kill the Rheinmetall, who was probably pushing up somewhere around there, or perhaps through those buildings as the Panther engaged me. So it did end up being a fairly close game, mainly through the efforts of myself and to a degree the T-32 at the end, but unfortunately not a win. And again, it's just one of those things. Sometimes there are teams that are just too heavy to carry, and this team was definitely one of those. Most of them didn't really seem to do anything particularly useful. In any case, I did end up having a really high damage game. Even if it was a loss, it was a pretty good loss. Well, I say it was a good loss, but I distinctly recall pasting the outcome of it in Goons chat and saying that I was about ready to go on a rampage. But you know, looking at it after I'd cooled down a bit, it was a pretty good game, and I think as much as I could, I played to the best of my ability. There wasn't much I could really do to make that team win. Now, if a couple more of them had actually used their guns on enemy tanks, we might have had a win. Once again, though, it's a good demonstration of the things the IS-3 is well known for. It has a fantastically powerful gun, which is excellent in close-range brawls, but also has an odd knack for snapshotting things it probably has no business hitting. Its gun doesn't have the best pen in Tier 8, but it's good enough. It doesn't have the best alpha in Tier 8. Well, not for all classes, but I think it might be the highest alpha for a heavy tank in Tier 8. I'm pretty sure 390 is the highest alpha of a heavy tank in Tier 8. In any case, the combination of that really hard-hitting gun and pretty good armor, not the best armor, but good, makes it really, really, really difficult to face in close quarters. It's relatively maneuverable, and can use that to increase the effectiveness of its armor by juking around and making it difficult to get a good shot at it. And as you could see there with the Panther firing at me, even though you may have a very high pen gun, technically speaking, the IS-3 is a hard target just because of the kind of angles it tends to give you, particularly if your gun's not a very big caliber and you can't overmatch its armor. You're just going to bounce all day. Now, there are a few important downsides to the IS-3 which people don't really mention. The main one is its ammo racks. The IS-3 is made of ammo racks. I don't have Tank Inspector working at the moment because there's some problem with it. Since the last patch it doesn't work at all, but I can tell you roughly where the position of the IS-3's ammo racks are. There's ammunition basically in a semicircle around the entire rear inside surface of the turret, like all the way around there. It's lining the sides of the hull. There's ammunition in around the driver. It's just a giant moving ammo rack, and if an IS-3 rears up over a hill and presents its lower plate and its floor, a good high pen shot through there can one-shot it. Similarly, if you get hit in the back of the turret by something with a high pen, high alpha gun, there's a good chance you will lose the rack. It's not as prone to it as some tanks, but it is still a problem, and it's a problem for the IS-7 as well, and I'm pretty sure it would be for the IS-4 if the IS-4 was easy to pen, which of course it's not. But the IS-7 does also get racked quite often through that lower plate, so you've got to be careful about that. Not only is it an armor weak spot, but it's also very much a express ticket to being ammo racked. In any case, so the IS-3 has always been one of the stronger Tier 8 tanks, certainly one of the strongest heavy tanks, tier for tier. It still is. There are some tanks that may have usurped it a little. The 110 is perhaps a little bit better overall, but it's still a really good solid tank. It's difficult to be bad at. Well, I say it's difficult to be bad at, but we all know pubbies find a way. But all the same, it's a fantastically well-rounded tank. And really, I think you can't go wrong with it, as long as you know how to, press W and left-click red tanks. That's all it takes. That's all it requires. And it's a good sort of relaxing tank to just play for fun and make credits in it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching. As ever, I'll see you on the next one.